You hear the click of the deadbolt behind you. You just drop your keys in the bowl, you kick your shoes into the corner, and
It's almost like you're watching someone else do it.
exactly, like your hand is already reaching for a glass.
Yeah.
And you're pouring a drink, not necessarily because you deeply crave the actual taste of the alcohol, but just because it's 5 o'clock and you survived the day.
Right. It's that expectation of relief.
I mean, your brain is practically whispering, like, I've earned this.
It really feels like a punctuation mark
Yeah.
at the end of a very long, very exhausting sentence.
Yeah, totally.
But the real issue isn't that single moment of pouring the drink. The issue is what happens when that period turns into this, like, heavy, lingering block of time.
Right.
Suddenly you're waking up the next morning feeling just completely exhausted, popping headache pills, and wondering why this supposedly harmless evening ritual feels, completely impossible to skip.
Which is exactly why we're doing a deep dive today into the underlying mechanics of reward drinking.
Ah, such a crucial topic.
It really is. And we're pulling some amazing insights today from Susan Gast. She's the founder of Live Better Sober.
Yeah, her story is incredible. She actually quit drinking at the age of 37 and has been sober since 1998.
Right, and she developed these fantastic resources like the somatic marker method, which we'll get into.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about that.
So our mission for this deep dive is to explore exactly why this nightly habit sticks like super glue. We're going to decode what your brain is actually asking for when it says, I deserve a drink.
And most importantly, how to dismantle this loop without feeling deprived.
Because, if you're listening right now, you have likely found yourself pouring that evening drink on pure autopilot at least once.
Oh, absolutely. To dismantle the habit, we really have to look at how the trap is set during the 12 hours before that drink is ever poured.
Yeah.
It starts with this perfectly reasonable sounding justification our brains offer us. And Susan Gast's personal story perfectly illustrates the sheer cognitive load required to trigger it.
Right, so let's trace her daily steps. So her alarm goes off at 5 a.m. She takes a quick shower, gets in the car, and faces a grueling 55-minute commute in heavy traffic.
Just brutal right off the bat.
Right. And then, from 7 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, she is creating CAD drawings of machine parts.
Which, if you think about the mental load of that specific environment...
Oh, it's intense.
It really is. Staring at a screen, calculating microscopic tolerances, managing this constant stream of thousands of micro decisions, it is absolute cognitive depletion.
Yeah, the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for willpower and complex decision-making, it's basically running a marathon for 8 straight hours.
Right. So by the time she wraps up, gets back in her car, and does another 55-minute drive home.
The drive back.
Right, the prefrontal cortex is completely offline. So she writes about going inside and executing this very specific transition ritual.
Yes, I love this part. Kicking off the shoes, taking off the bra, putting on a comfy dress, and then the grand finale, a whiskey and Coke.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she noted that the thought, I deserve a drink, never felt like an excuse to her.
No, not at all.
It felt like a legitimate, hard-earned reward.
Because the real reward in that moment isn't actually the alcohol.
Right.
The true reward is the permission to finally stop being productive. The drink is just the physical signal to her exhausted brain that the cognitive marathon is officially over.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
But here's where it gets really interesting. If you do this enough times, you create a neural pathway that bypasses decision-making entirely.
Oh, the autopilot brain.
Right. Think of habit formation in the brain like walking through a snowy field. The very first time you trudge through the fresh snow, it takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, it's tough.
But if you walk that exact same path every day at 5 p.m., you carve a deep, slippery trench. So eventually, you don't even have to walk. You just arrive at the edge of the trench and automatically slide down it.
That is such a perfect analogy.
You arrive home, you get comfy, and you pour the drink whether you actually want it or not, simply because the context is making the decision for you. You pull into your driveway without remembering the last 5 miles.
Right. And what's fascinating here is the neuroscience behind that sliding feeling. It's driven by dopamine.
Right, which everyone thinks is just the pleasure chemical.
Exactly. We culturally misunderstand dopamine so much. But neurologically, it's actually the brain's learning chemical. It's a reinforcement mechanism.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. So when you are that depleted from your workday, your brain looks for the fastest route to comfort. The alcohol hits your system, and dopamine floods the brain, essentially stamping this neurological sticky note on the experience.
A sticky note that says, hey, remember what we just did to get this relief? Do it again tomorrow.
Precisely. Over time, your brain associates the physical drink with the feeling of relief, and it completely conflates the two.
Right.
So when your internal monologue says, I deserve a drink, it's not a moral failing. To a tired brain, suggesting that drink is the fastest, most efficient way it knows to take care of you.
Yeah, the brain is looking at your soaring stress levels and basically saying, hey, I have a cheat code for this. I know exactly how to shut down the anxiety about those CAD drawings and the traffic.
Just cover the whiskey.
Exactly. It's seeking a state change. But the method it chooses to achieve that state change is where the illusion of the reward really begins to fracture.
Because it always escalates.
Right. Susan's story outlines this perfectly. I mean, her intention was always just one drink, just to take the edge off.
Always just one drink.
Yeah. But the initial buzz kicks in, and once it's there, this undeniable compulsion takes over to just keep it going. One drink turns into 5 or 6.
Yeah.
You don't set out to drink that much, but the chemical reality basically takes the steering wheel away from whatever rational brain you have left.
And the mechanism behind that escalation, it comes down to how alcohol manipulates two specific neurotransmitters.
Oh, right. GABA and glutamate.
Exactly. So GABA is essentially your brain's brake pedal. It slows down the firing of neurons, which is why you feel that immediate wave of relaxation after the first sip.
Because the alcohol chemically slams on the GABA brakes?
Right. But your brain is this highly calibrated machine that demands equilibrium or, homeostasis.
Right.
So when alcohol artificially depresses the nervous system, the brain panics. And it starts pumping out glutamate, which is the brain's gas pedal.
Okay, so the gas pedal.
Yeah, and it's an excitatory chemical designed to keep you awake and functioning when it thinks you're shutting down too fast.
Which explains the brutal aftermath. I
Right.
mean, the alcohol wears off in the middle of the night, meaning the artificial pressure on the brake pedal is suddenly gone.
But your brain is still flooding your system with glutamates.
Exactly. And that is why you wake up at 3 a.m. Your heart is racing, you're sweating, your thoughts are spiraling with anxiety.
It's awful.
It really is. You're experiencing a glutamate rebound. And then the morning arrives, you're greeted with this overwhelming grogginess, a pounding headache, and you're taking 2 headache pills while making yet another empty promise to yourself to quit.
And, the repeating nature of this cycle brings up a fascinating psychological phenomenon. It's known as fading effect bias.
Fading effect bias. Okay, what is that?
Well, it answers the question of why we keep doing this if the 3 a.m. wake up is so deeply miserable.
Right, because you'd think we'd learn.
You'd think. But fading effect bias is a psychological survival mechanism where the brain deliberately decreases the intensity of negative memories faster than positive ones.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so by 5 p.m. the next day, your brain's reward center has practically deleted the visceral memory of that 3 a.m. panic. But it has perfectly preserved the memory of that initial dopamine hit from the very first sip.
Okay, let's unpack this because it's prioritizing short-term relief over long-term consequences, right?
Yeah,
A lot of people compare this cycle to a high-interest credit card, but I think that metaphor actually falls short.
Oh, really?
Well, a credit card implies a conscious transaction where you, agree to the terms, you get the immediate item, but the debt you pay the next morning is massive. But this is much more insidious. It's a physiological trap.
That's a great point. It's not a rational trade-off.
Right. Susan's resources highlight that alcohol provides a very quick state change, altering your neurochemistry in minutes. But quick relief is not real recovery. It's basically a temporary anesthetic.
Yeah.
And over time, because you're consistently relying on a chemical substance to transition from stress to rest, your natural neurological pathways for relaxation begin to physically weaken. You actually lose the ability to self-soothe.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you are actively dismantling your own parasympathetic nervous system.
The rest and digest system.
Right, because you're outsourcing its job to a liquid.
Yeah.
The reward stops feeling rewarding because it has completely hijacked your baseline. You aren't just dealing with a bad habit. Your brain has been trained to rely on alcohol for relief, effectively cutting off your access to healthier emotional regulation strategies. The pattern repeating, even when you genuinely want it to stop, is the real warning sign.
So the drink isn't just failing to relax you, it's actively destroying your ability to relax without it. I mean, that changes the entire perspective.
It really does.
But it also leads us to the hardest part of the deep dive. How do we give the brain the relief it legitimately needs without relying on alcohol and without just, white-knuckling it through the evening feeling completely deprived?
Well, Susan Gass addresses this with incredible transparency. She actually admits that the first few days of sobriety can sometimes be surprisingly easy.
Really? Easy.
Yeah, because you're running on the fresh, painful momentum of that last bad hangover.
Oh, right. The misery is fresh.
It's exactly. But the true danger zone arrives after 2 or 3 weeks. The hangover memory has been completely scrubbed by the fading effect bias we talked about. Your physical energy is back, and the temptation sneaks in, whispering that just one will be fine.
Yeah, that sneaky just one. So to combat that specific danger zone, Susan utilized what is known as the somatic marker method.
Yes.
When the urge to drink hit her, she didn't just casually try to distract herself or think positive thoughts. She would vividly, physically force herself to recall her bad drinking episodes.
Right, she visualized exactly how they ended.
Exactly. She brought up the feeling of the nausea, the throbbing headache, the deep self-loathing. She used the visceral memory of the pain to squash the urge in real time.
The somatic marker hypothesis, which was originally developed by neuroscientist Antonio Damasio, suggests that our physiological responses, things like a rapid heartbeat, a knot in the stomach, or nausea, they heavily influence our decision-making.
So those physical feelings are the somatic markers.
Exactly. So what Susan was doing was brilliantly hacking this system. Since her brain's fading effect bias was trying to delete the negative memory of the hangover just to get the dopamine hit, she consciously forced the somatic marker back into her present reality.
That is so smart.
Yeah, by intentionally recalling the physical misery, she forcefully overrode the brain's romanticized craving. She literally brought the 3 a.m. reality right into the 5 p.m. decision.
Wow. Okay, so once that immediate urge was intercepted, she obviously had to replace the routine. And her true replacement rewards sound incredibly simple at first glance.
Yeah.
I mean, a quick walk around the house, picking a few wildflowers from the yard, taking a nice hot shower.
Right.
But so what does this all mean? Because if I'm playing devil's advocate for the listener here, if I am standing in my kitchen, completely fried from an 8-hour day of putting out fires, and someone tells me to go pick wildflowers instead of pouring a drink, I might laugh in their face.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, picking wildflowers and taking a shower sounds lovely, but is that really going to stand up against the immediate heavy-hitting buzz of a whiskey and Coke when you're deeply stressed? It sounds like bringing a squirt gun to a 4-alarm fire.
It really does. And this raises an important question. It's actually the most common point of resistance, and it requires a complete shift in how we understand what a reward actually is.
Okay, how so?
Well, you cannot substitute the chemical intensity of an alcohol buzz. If you try to match that artificial dopamine spike with flowers, you will fail.
Right, that makes sense.
Instead, you have to look at what those replacement activities are doing on a neurochemical level.
Right.
When Susan took a hot shower, she wasn't just distracting herself.
Right.
Hot water physically dilates blood vessels, which lowers blood pressure. It actually stimulates the vagus nerve, which is the superhighway of the parasympathetic nervous system.
Oh, wow. So it's actively working on the body.
Exactly. It naturally lowers cortisol levels without artificially slamming on those GABA brakes we talked about, which means there is no glutamate rebound at 3 a.m.
So it is a tactical neurochemical intervention. You're choosing an activity that genuinely transitions your body from work mode to rest mode, rather than just anesthetizing the stress.
Precisely.
Which brings us to Susan's central, most powerful mantra for these moments. I deserve relief, but I do not have to use alcohol to get it.
And the architecture of that sentence is vital. You do not argue with the thought of wanting a drink. Fighting the craving just gives it more energy and keeps your brain fixated on the alcohol.
Right.
Instead, you validate the underlying need. You acknowledge the exhaustion, the stress, and the fact that you genuinely deserve comfort.
Yeah.
Then you pivot the focus to a reward that won't punish you later. By choosing the gentle reward, like the vagus nerve stimulation of a hot shower or a walk, you satisfy the genuine physiological need for decompression while actively starving the old destructive neural trench we talked about earlier.
You're choosing the reward that actually cares for you tomorrow morning rather than the one that just shuts you down tonight. Which leads directly to the most actionable strategy from Susan's toolkit, the 2-minute pause exercise.
Oh, this is so good.
It is. She suggests that tonight, before your usual drink time, before you start sliding down that snowy trench on autopilot, you force a 2-minute pause, you sit down with a piece of paper and write out the sentence. After a hard day, what I really need is blank.
Right.
And let's be entirely honest, sitting alone in a quiet kitchen for 2 minutes when your brain is screaming at you to just open the fridge, is agonizing.
It is.
It is incredibly uncomfortable to sit with the raw feeling of needing a chemical transition.
But that discomfort is literally the sensation of
Oh,
neuroplasticity.
I love that phrasing.
Yeah, it's the feeling of choosing not to slide down the entrenched pathway. That 2-minute pause injects a moment of conscious mindfulness into an automatic routine. It gives your prefrontal cortex just enough time to boot back up and actually assess the situation.
So you sit through the discomfort and you fill in the blank. Maybe what you really need is absolute silence. Maybe you need to physically separate from screens. Maybe you need to vent to a partner. Or maybe you just need to eat dinner immediately because your blood sugar has crashed and your brain is confusing physical depletion with the need for a drink.
That happens so often.
It really does. You identify the real deficit, and then you match a small, non-punishing reward to that specific need. You sit on the patio in the quiet for 10 minutes. You immediately change out of your work clothes to signal a physical boundary. You cook a meal.
You are actively rebuilding your brain's natural ability to self-soothe. The goal isn't to replicate the intense numbness of the alcohol. The goal is to bridge the gap between responsibility and rest in a way that respects your neurochemistry and your future self.
Yeah.
Instead of asking, do I deserve a drink?
Yeah.
You're asking a much better question. What reward won't punish me later?
Exactly. Well, we have unpacked a tremendous amount of the neurobiology and psychology behind our evening routines in this deep dive.
We really have.
We examine the reality of the cognitive marathons we run every day, making thousands of micro-decisions until our prefrontal cortex essentially shuts down.
Yeah.
We looked at how our brains build those autopilot habit loops, using dopamine to carve deep trenches that pull us into the kitchen and burn glass in our hands before we even realize what is happening.
Right.
And we explored the trap of GABA and glutamate and how the nightly drink isn't actually relaxing us, but destroying our natural ability to regulate our own nervous system.
And, we walk through the practical mechanics of dismantling that trap. We explored how the somatic marker method uses the visceral physical memory of the hangover to override the brain's fading effect bias.
Yeah, that was huge.
We detailed how tactical interventions like a hot shower stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system without the chemical rebound. And we looked at how injecting a 2-minute pause can help you identify what your body is actually asking for.
So here is the direct challenge for you. Try Susan's 2-minute sentence exercise tonight. When that familiar heavy urge hits around 5 p.m., don't argue with it.
Right? Don't fight it.
Don't fight the craving. Just force the pause. Sit in the uncomfortable quiet for 120 seconds. Ask yourself, what would help me feel cared for tomorrow morning? And fill in the blank. Pay attention to what your brain actually needs when it thinks it just wants a drink.
And as you explore that pause, there is a broader context worth considering. We've spent this time discussing how drinking provides the necessary permission to stop being productive.
Right.
But if we pull back and look at the cultural architecture surrounding us, it makes you wonder, is our modern society's obsession with endless, nonstop productivity the actual root cause of this nightly habit loop?
Oh, wow.
Right. If we were running a marathon of cognitive labor every single day, perhaps the ultimate rebellion isn't having a drink at 5 p.m. Perhaps the ultimate rebellion is simply allowing yourself the grace to sit and do absolutely nothing without needing a substance to justify it.
That is such a powerful thought to end on. Tomorrow, when you hear the click of that deadbolt and the house is finally quiet, remember, you absolutely deserve relief. But the truest reward is the one that lets you wake up feeling free.